In this video, I will share with you 5 practical Python projects that will help you develop the skills that you need to become a Python master. These projects are in a variety of different areas, they go over many different topics, and the point of this is that they will give you a very broad knowledge of Python and make you very comfortable and competent working with the language. Each project that I put on this list will teach you a different skill. It will be something practical that you could actually apply in the real world, and you will learn a ton. So without further ado, let's get into the video. I encourage you to work on these projects and practice your skill, just like I practice my skill of my sponsor segues. Before we get started, I need to thank Linode for sponsoring this video. I've been using and working with Linode for nearly 3 years now, and they've consistently been my go-to choice for hosting my applications and servers. In fact, right now I'm using Linode to host the official Tech with Tim Discord bot, a website, multiple of my domains, and a Kubernetes cluster. Now, Linode was just recently acquired by Akamai, and as a part of this acquisition, they're going to be adding more than a dozen new data centers around the world in the next year. Linode makes it super easy to spin up servers with their one-click app marketplace and have tons of written guides and YouTube videos on their channel to help you get started. Now, if you're having any issues, you can reach out to their 24/7 support team and actually talk with a real human being. Now, Linode's pricing is simple with no hidden fees and full transparency, and you can test out Linode services for free by using the link in the description and claiming an $100 60-day credit for any new accounts. It's been an absolute pleasure to work with Linode over the past few years, and one last thank you to them for sponsoring this video. Alright, so I'll get into the project ideas in a second, but I just want to mention that the ideas here are just that. They're ideas, they're meant to be inspiration, so please add your own creative touches. Think about ways that you can kind of change the project around, make it more applicable to you. I'm just trying to give you some inspiration here and give you an excuse to go work on a Python project. If you want some full Python project walkthroughs, you want some more help going through them, then you can check out my course, programmingexpert.io. We have a bunch of projects on there, hundreds of practice questions, and that's going to give you a lot of resources if you're just trying to get better at Python. Anyways, let's dive into project number 1, which has to do with scripting and automation. So Python is one of the best languages when it comes to writing automation scripts, command line tools, and really anything that kind of manipulates files or folders or directories or does, I guess, like a repetitive human task. So I'll give you a concrete example of something I built recently in Python that's kind of an automation tool. So a lot of you know that I work for a startup right now, and at that startup we have a few game developers. Now, for each game they make, there's kind of like a template that has some pre-built components, has a little bit of pre-written code, some stuff that's going to be kind of the same for each game, and some metadata files and some information that they kind of need to fill in. Now, previously I had this big long like documentation sheet that said, okay, do this, and it was like 10 steps to set up the game, but there was always mistakes, people were kind of forgetting fields, and it just was time consuming, right, for them to go and read the documentation. So I said, you know what, I'm going to write a quick tool that will just kind of do this for. So we have this template folder. So what my tool does is you run it. It asks you, what's the name of the game? What's the description? What's all of the metadata required? Then it copies the template folder, pastes it, change the name of the folder, goes in, fills in all of the metadata, deletes any unnecessary files, adds new files, and just sets up the game so that it's pretty much click and run. And then the game developer just goes into the folder, writes all of their game development code, and then we're good to go. I know if they use that tool that everything's set up properly, and there we are. We've just, done everything that usually would take them, 20, 30 minutes in about a 30-second kind of, input to the script. So those are the type of things that I'm talking about for this first project. They don't have to be overly complicated. They can just be something that really makes your life easier and kind of does some file operation, right? Or some manipulation of things that usually you're doing manually that you could probably spend about an hour writing a script for. That's just going to clean everything up and make it so that you're not going to make any mistakes and everything's going to be a lot faster. Another example here is to like clean up a bunch of temporary files or unnecessary files. You could literally write a script that just deletes everything from your downloads folder. That would be like 10 lines of code, but now you just double click this rather than, going into the downloads folder, selecting everything, deleting it. I know it's okay. It's going to be, 5-10 second difference if you do something like that. But the point is Python is really good at working with files. It's very fast to write code when you're trying to do these kind of scripts. So think about how you can automate some of the activities in your life and start creating basic Python scripts that do that. If you can get familiar with the OS module, the pathlib module, you're going to feel like you have kind of superpowers when it comes to file operations, manipulation, searching for stuff on your computer, and it's just going to make you a really good Python developer. All right, moving on to project idea number 2. Now, this is going to be in the web development category. Now, this again is one of the more practical things you can do with Python, building websites, building REST APIs, building backends. That's what Python is good at. Now, I wouldn't necessarily recommend using Python for building an entire front end, although you can definitely create something that looks decent using something like Django or Flask and kind of sprinkling in a bit of HTML, JavaScript, CSS, etc. But if you can build something with Python that has an authentication system, right, that's going to be a really good learning experience and something that is going to look great on a resume. So I'll give you a few ideas here for kind of web projects to build with Python that aren't massive, but that are definitely worth doing and that will teach you a bunch of skills. So the first one I'm going to give you here is to build a Twitter clone. Now, I know that might seem kind of intimidating at first. There's a lot of stuff in Twitter, but whenever you're building a social media clone, if you actually take it kind of down to the bare bones, like what are the absolutely necessary features, it's pretty simple to implement these. Think about Twitter. Someone posts a tweet, you can reply to a tweet, you can like a tweet, you can retweet it. Really, that's the core functionality that you need to have. And then from there, you go and you say, okay, I'm going to add a profile where you view all of this user's tweets. I'm going to add a search page where you can search for a user. Slowly, you can add on a lot of features, and this is a project you can work on for a really long time and shows a lot of skill if you're going to put this on something like a resume. So the reason I would recommend something like this is that first, you have to build your authentication system. You have to be signing in users, signing out users, making sure you have unique usernames. You're going to have a database. You're going to have to associate data with users. You're going to have a way to quickly search for users. There's a lot of skills baked into a project like this, and even though it's not necessarily original, it's something you can put your own spin on. For example, I tried to create on a live stream a typing racer clone. You guys know the game where you like type against someone and you're trying to do the fastest words per minute, except rather than doing just regular sentences, it was code. So it's like a code racer game, right? I think that's what I called it in the live stream. I didn't end up finishing this project. It was kind of a big project that I tried to take on in too short of a time. But again, another great idea. You have the authentication system. You're going to have live sockets where people are actually interacting with each other in live time. A lot of stuff to learn from a project like that and something that's great to talk about on a resume. All right, so the next project I have for you has to do with web scraping and data collection. Now, for this project, I recommend that you do something where you're grabbing a large amount of information either from an API or you're actually scraping a website and grabbing all of this data yourself. That's probably the preferred approach, but if you can't find a website that has the data that you want, then maybe you go with an API that will kind of give all of it to you. And then you take all of this data, you parse through it, you pull out the meaningful parts, and then you display it in some kind of dashboard. Now, in Python, it is a bit difficult to create graphical user interfaces. So you could do something simple like use matplotlib, right? And you could kind of set up, charts or graphs or whatever you want to do with that. Or you could create a front end and actually display it on the front end if you have, some basic JS, CSS, HTML skills. So kind of up to you in terms of the display, but I recommend having, two distinct parts of the project where you have your data collection, kind of parsing through the data, cleaning it up, knowing how to work with larger pieces of data. Maybe use something like pandas. Maybe you're saving stuff in large JSON files or databases, and then you actually go and kind of display this and make it a bit visual and graphical. Now, in terms of a specific project, I recommend you do something with GitHub. So you can do something like a GitHub language tracker, which is going to track all of the most popular programming languages based on, percentage of language in GitHub repositories. I think that's how you would do that. Or you could do something where it shows you your commit history. So maybe use the GitHub API. You grab information about your commits. You're logging, information about different pull requests you have open. Whatever you want to do, but I would do something that's kind of related to programming or a field that you're interested in. And that way it's going to look good on a resume. You can be a bit more passionate about it when you're kind of talking about it. And if you do something related to GitHub, then that's something that's a bit more practical, I would say, right? Because you can actually create a tool that will help you visualize, okay, these are all the issues I have open on GitHub. These are all my pull requests. I know that already exists, but we're trying to work on projects here that build skills. So using a bit of web scraping, using different APIs, parsing that data, displaying in a graphical format, I think this makes a really good project and it's going to teach you a lot of great Python skills. All right, so moving on to project 4, I have to do something related to game development. Now, I know that Python is not the best when it comes to game development. A lot of people are probably going to hate on this because you're not going to create a AAA game in Python. Anything you make in Python that's a game, you're probably not going to put on the App Store or something like that, right? However, doing games in Python for me is what really got me into programming. It's what taught me a ton of skills, And really, I credit that to me even having this YouTube channel. When I was younger, I used to make so many games in Python because I just loved doing it. I loved playing games, I loved making the games, and it was a really fun way for me to practice a ton of Python skills. So I would highly recommend to anyone here that, maybe didn't like the other projects as much, just wants to work on something solely for fun or as a hobby project, make some games in Python. They're really fun and they teach you a lot. So I'll give you a few different kind of game development ideas. And just by the way, I would recommend you use a module like Pygame, although there is a module PyMonk, which is pretty useful if you want to do like physics related stuff where, all the physics is implemented already. So you have like bouncing, gravity, different shapes and objects. I have a tutorial on my channel if you guys want to check it out. Anyways, a few game development ideas. I would make something like Battleship, Brick Breaker, Space Invaders, Pong. You could do Flappy Bird. You could create like a Mario kind of platformer clone. You could make Pokemon if you wanted to do that. There's all kinds of different things you can do. And if you look up, Python game ideas, you'll probably see a bunch from my channel. You'll see a bunch of other really impressive games made in Python. Now, by working on a game, you get a whole different skill set in terms of designing a program, laying out a screen, all of the math related to like the geometry and how you do collision and how you implement, like jumping, writing gravity. So you're actually applying, oftentimes I find, like some basic physics or math or trigonometry. And it's cool because you're taking stuff that's not just programming and kind of implementing it into your code. You also have to figure out, okay, how do I spawn objects on the screen? How do I reset a game? How do I make this kind of scalable so I could add new levels or new objects? It gives you, in my opinion, a decent perspective of kind of program design. And I think it's something useful that a lot of you could find some value in. So moving on to my next project, and this is to do something related to Web3. Now, I know a lot of people instantly hate when they hear crypto, they hear Web3. If you're one of those people, I would say, relax. I'm not scamming you. I don't have a coin to sell you. I'm just trying to give some new ideas, some things that are going to be interesting that is kind of, relevant with the trends in tech today. So a lot of people are into Web3, and I think that it would be a cool idea to do something like querying the blockchain, grabbing information about the most recent block, graphing the trend in difficulty, grabbing your wallet address and creating maybe even like a blockchain wallet. You could do that in something like Python. You could create a blockchain wallet. It allows you to send Ethereum, receive Ethereum, view all of your different transactions, track the balance of your account over time. There's a lot of cool stuff you can do with Web3. Just got to open up your mind to the possibility that not all of this is a scam. I know many of you watching that don't feel this way, but anytime I talk about Web3, I just get spammed in the comments with people like hating on it. So I felt the need to add that in there. Anyways, a ton of cool Web3 projects. I'm actually working with someone right now who has a really cool idea related to like a Web3 lottery where he's kind of tracking all of the transactions that are being sent to an address. Then he's doing this cool kind of cryptographic math thing where he's rolling a lottery and sending a random amount of Bitcoin to a certain address. I don't want to spoil his idea too much, but there's a lot of cool stuff you can do, and you can do this completely in Python, which is what I'm doing with him. All right, so that did complete my 5 project ideas. Now I will add in a few bonuses here that I wanted to leave until the end. And this is of course like machine learning, data science. So there's all kinds of stuff you can do with machine learning and data science in Python, but I don't like including those as projects in this video because they are kind of a whole different field of programming, and it's a very different skill set. If you want to get into machine learning, data science, that's really a different career path than all of the other kind of projects that I just walked you through. So of course, you can do something like that. It's obviously going to make you a better Python developer to be working with machine learning models, understanding how to analyze large scale data, but again, doesn't necessarily fit kind of the theme or topic of this video. So with that said, I will wrap it up here. Hope you guys enjoyed. Hope you found some inspiration and some project ideas. Let me know what you're working on in the comments down below, and I look forward to seeing you in another YouTube video.